The state of Call of Duty in 2022 is, well, fucked. Outside of Microsoft buying Activision for $69 billion, the franchise has been releasing lackluster game after lackluster game with a slowly frustrated and dying fan base. Vanguard being the poster child of development oversight. I can't say this is something new for the franchise, as this has been going on long before some of you could even use a toilet by yourselves. I wish I had some positive things to say, but if you have been around this channel long enough, even before I did my mass delete of videos around 2018, then you probably know I don't really do that. So this video is going to serve three purposes. One, talk about each Call of Duty, starting with Call of Duty 4, as this was the starting point for the multiplayer you've come to know and maybe love or hate, I'm not sure. Two, review and rank each game, even going as far as giving you some history behind them and how the community and myself view them currently or previously. Three, give you a better perspective as to how we ended up here in a chaotic mess of development choices and tell you the full state of Call of Duty and how this can be improved. So with all that being said, I'm going to let my dear friend Rose here take things away.
Stand by for the comedy event of the season!
Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare. The game that started it all, COD 4, was one of the most influential and innovative titles of the mid-2000s. Every game before it felt like cavemen rubbing sticks together, with COD 4 being fire. It received critical acclaim from reviewers and fans alike. If it sounds like I have a hard-o for this game, well, it's because I do. And it's not because it's just me, but anyone else who pretty much played this game during the range of 2007 to probably late 2009 will most likely tell you how great this game really was. The game was a big leap for the franchise. Everything that they did prior was just a World War II shooter, which was pretty much the entire market at the time. So someone probably said, why don't we just do modern things? And well, it paid off. It was a big gamble. The campaign is one of the best in the franchise, featuring iconic moments.
Nice. Your fruit killing skills are remarkable.
And giving us some of those iconic missions in the entire franchise. For instance, everyone's favorite mission, All Gillied Up.
Oi, Susie.
Not going into its specifics, but it combined stealth and realism, which truly delivered one of the most iconic missions in Call of Duty history. Being honest, most of you probably just care about the multiplayer anyway, so let's just get to that. The multiplayer was one of the first in the series to introduce custom classes and a perk system, along with kill streaks. They were all pretty good choices, and a lot of content creators you watch probably now were the pioneers in the early days of the tube for Call of Duty creators and content. It also had a robust new progression system, one unlike any other game at the time, if any game was even really doing one quite like this, and it's the same one that you kind of know today. This also featured a map pack called the Variety Map Pack, which featured everyone's favorite DLC map, Kill House, a remake of Carentan in Chinatown, Broadcast for you Warzone players, this is where that started, and Creek. The game is a 9.6 out of 10, and no one can really say anything else. I think that's a very good score for this game. This might be a little controversial though, but it's currently my number 7 on my rankings list. Moving on. Quick side note, the score has nothing to do with the ranking. I just felt like doing both made sense. So, Call of Duty World at War. If this were 2008, you would see nothing but complaining about how the game was a step back from Modern Warfare. It wasn't good. The order of unalived organized bigotry was the only good part about this game. Can I disagree? Not really. World at War isn't a bad game, but it didn't come out at the best time. Maybe if the game came out probably post-Advanced Warfare, maybe it would have been a better game and would have succeeded, but it didn't. The fanbase at the time was tired of World War II shooters, and when COD 4 launched, it was seen as a breath of fresh air. Naturally, when World at War was announced, it wasn't really met with the best fan reaction. The story is very much the same as, different factions fighting under a common goal. Surprisingly, the game had a very dark tone. The soundtrack, the main menu, and in the overall game highlight that. Even its excessive use of flying limbs and flamethrowers show the horrors of war. The story delivered some very iconic characters, exposed the use of a ray gun technology during World War II. That's right, the United States Marine Corps had ray gun technology at Peleliu, and our government had kept that a secret from us for so long. Luckily, the brave men and women of Treyarch exposed this, so thank you, Treyarch. You are heroes to this nation. I want to introduce you to a game that I like to call Name That Voice Actor. I don't have a studio audience in here, so that kind of makes it really awkward. Can you guess who plays Sergeant Reznov? It's Gary Oldman. Whoa, that's a spoiler for Harry Potter. Sorry about that. I didn't intentionally mean to do that. Okay, let's do another one. Can you guess who plays Sergeant Roebuck? It's Kiefer Sutherland. Come on, man. It's from 24. Anyone? My parents love that show. The multiplayer was pretty okay. Basically everything COD 4 did well. World at War did as well, but with tanks, being honest, it wasn't something I was writing home about, but the progression was pretty fun. Most people continue to play COD 4, but this game had one big draw, that being zombies of the organized bigots. The zombies mode is similar to battle royales because at one point it was the big thing to do. Wave-based co-op modes were on the rise with two notable games, World at War and Gears of War 2, launching just weeks apart, both with wave-based game modes. Zombies was a lot of fun, and when DLC started to come out, people were only shelling out the money not to play for the multiplayer maps, but for the zombies maps. The best map coming with Deriz, easily the greatest map of all time, and it was the first time when we ever got the pack-punch machine, and if you know about the scaffolding and having to camp up there, man, you know what I'm talking about. This also led to a lot of the Easter eggs you see now, so I'm going to grade this game a 7.5 out of 10. Honestly, it wasn't anything special outside of zombies, and I currently rank this game at number 10 on my list. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. Unequivocally the greatest Call of Duty experience ever. The story was S tier, it turned grown men into weeping babies, an S tier multiplayer experience which I can't really say was at all balanced because at the time half the development team left to go on and create Respawn Entertainment, the same company that you've seen probably create Titanfall, Apex Legends, and Jedi Fallen Order. But this led to the player base seeing an update as frequently as a kid's parents who leave to go get milk. Pretty much everything that you bitch about now, such as cheaters, weapon imbalance, lack of content, etc., is literally Modern Warfare 2, except there was pretty much no development team to fix anything, so you pretty much had to make do with what you had. But through the Commando Pro, the one-man army, the Danger Close, this was actually called fun. You could do like the dumbest shit in the world, and since Activision was more focused on getting Infinity Ward a team for the future, nothing got patched. I mean, you basically had things like out-of-the-map glitches, boosting. You also had a lot of people that were like ranking up their levels just through in-game, cheats. Being honest, I think Activision looked at this as a wash, but instead it was one of the most popular games of the late 2000s, early 2010s. My favorite part of this game was its ad campaigns. Like, they kept just getting taken down for being too offensive. For instance, one ad campaign, which I believe was for the stimulus map pack, featured an old man telling people that everyone was doing it.
Everyone is doing it. Guys are doing it with girls. Some get together in groups and do it. Some go online and do it with complete strangers. Some like deeper penetration when they do it. Some people like to do it hardcore.
And then they had another one, which, if it were done today, the Call of Duty franchise would have been canceled so fast. The ad campaign featured professional baseball player and husband to Survivor Amazon player Heidi. Yes, I got a reference in there. Cole Hamels. The campaign was fight against grenade spam. Again, it was fight against grenade spam. Wonder why that got pulled. Also, Spec Ops was in the game, so yeah. Rating-wise, MW2 was a 9.5 out of 10, just full of cheese, full of fun, and full of shit. But this game is always talked about being one of the best. Again, it might be because of the dumb stuff you could do and just get away with, but this game would never have succeeded by today's standards. And on my ranking list, this is number 1. There's no debate. I don't care what ranks higher than it in terms of score. This is number 1. Also, you can't forget...
No Russian.
Call of Duty Black Ops. Have you ever wanted a more balanced Call of Duty experience? Black Ops 1 is the most balanced Call of Duty ever created. It catered to all playstyles. You had maybe a couple OP weapons, which were balanced not long after. Basically, Treyarch was on top of their shit every step of the way. Every gun was usable, no matter how funny they looked compared to the other ones.
That is the scariest fucking thing I've ever seen in my entire life.
And every map in this game just slapped. DLC or not, they were all very well thought out, memorable, and I used to love the pre-DLC launch because the developers would release these videos talking about the game, and literally the most iconic was...
On the monorail, it's a great advantage point.
This map called Zoo came out with the Escalation map pack, and some bozo made it clear that if you were on the monorail that you basically had the entire map controlled, which it wasn't by any way, shape, or form, but nonetheless the map in every map was still iconic. The game was set during the Vietnam Cold War era and featured... Okay, listen. I've said this a few times, probably about 3 times, but for each game has memorable characters. For instance, there was the fan favorite Woods, who was the no-nonsense sergeant, Mason, who was always worried about the numbers, Reznov was back, and Hudson, who was there. Let's play another game of Name That Voice. I don't have an audience behind me. Who did the voice of Bowman? It's Ice Cube from the rap group... The story was kind of a mindfuck, so to speak, with the numbers being a real thing, where, if I'm correct, I'm not much of a history teacher, The Soviet Union had sleeper agents pretty much all over the US, maybe even the world, and were meant to carry out certain missions when they heard certain key phrases. Kind of crazy. You escape gulags, unalive certain dictators' body double, and you find out Reznov, who you thought was alive the whole time, was actually dead, which is insane. Spoilers for Black Ops 1, by the way. Should have probably brought that up beforehand. The Zombies mode also carried over from World at War and never missed a beat. Did you get tired of playing as the core 4 from the previous game or just some random no-name characters? Play the Mission 5, where you played as JFK, Fidel Castro, Dick Nixon, and Secretary of Defense McNamara. This also featured another fan-favorite map, Ascension, and if you know, you know. Black Ops is another easy 9.2 out of 10, and it currently ranks as number 5 on my list. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3. MW3 is the Derek Carr of Call of Duty games, not something you have high expectations of, but you're surprised when it actually does better than you thought. Modern Warfare 3 was the safe option for the studio that was still recovering from the mass exodus of the development team that went to Respawn. It even had help from fan-favorite studio Sledgehammer Games. Honestly, it wasn't bad, the story was very well done, and put a nice bow on the Modern Warfare franchise so that way they could do other things, delivering yet a making grown men cry moment.
You have to go now! Get off me! I'm sorry.
The multiplayer was pretty much Modern Warfare 2, but a balanced version of that, introduced like strike packages and stuff like that, but met with criticism after it was announced by Robert Bowling that we wouldn't see Last Stand, which was pretty much the most hated part of any Call of Duty game ever.
Last Stand. Fuck you, Last Stand.
The players got an egg on their face, and people were pissed.
No Last Stand. Fuck you, Last Stand.
I appreciated its DLC structure because it was called Call of Duty Elite, which ended up having like its own event and stuff where you could play paintball and whatever. I never went, but I knew it was like a big thing for content creators. It was a glorified season pass, but it gave you a few maps every month versus 4 maps every few months. Honestly, it was an amazing DLC structure because it kept the game kind of playable month to month, and also Spec Ops existed. I'm going to score this game a 7.1 out of 10 and rate it a 13 on my list, mainly because it wasn't anything special outside of like the story. Huh, what's that? We're going to do another round of Guess That Actor? Oh, here we go. Let's guess that. I've decided to be more fun to offer a hint. A hint. Yes, a hint, so you not need to hiss when you miss your guess. I'm working on it. The actor had a leading role in a movie, so who was the voice of Truck? Idris Elba, the eye of middle-aged women everywhere? Call of Duty Black Ops 2. I know this is going to be an uphill battle of sorts, so I'm just going to make this very quick so you can get right to calling me an asshole in the comments section. Hot take, Black Ops 2 isn't as good as people say it is. The story is pretty good. My only gripe is that the choices the player makes throughout the game doesn't have any impact on later games, but I can't really blame Treyarch for that. Zombies was okay. Transit and Mob of the Dead were really the only two things that I thought were enjoyable about zombies in this game. Multiplayer is not good. It had a more competitive focus. The Pick 10 system felt more like a penalty for the non-competitive types or normies. Do I hate competitive Call of Duty? No, actually I love it. I've been watching the CDL like the whole entire weekend, but I don't really like it mixing with my normie ass. Did I mention Vondi received death threats because snipers were patched? No? Yeah, that happened. After the Precious DSR was patched ever so slightly, the sniping community went cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs and threatened Vondi's life because of the nerf. This might be a few years too late, but just don't do that. Like, threatening the developers because a decision is made is not probably the best answer. So again, don't do that. The maps were average or below average, with the exception of Raid and Hijacked, which were two of my favorite maps in Call of Duty history. DDoSing and swatting were at their peak, and having experienced DDoSing during this game, let me tell you, it's not very fun. This game is going to get a 9 out of 10 and ranks at number 8 on my list. It's a good game that just had a lot of stuff going on during the time that really brought this experience down for me. Call of Duty Ghosts. What is there to say about Call of Duty Ghosts?
Dog model. We're really excited. Our new dog model.
We have to go back. Our dad's down there, and we're not leaving without him.
That's real admirable view. But your father's not there anymore.
Oh, what the fuck ever?
You were one of them. You're a ghost.
Try the ghost.
This game was laughed at from the announcement because the developers felt like they were doing things that were innovative, when in reality, the things that they were doing were probably around since the N64. I also think when the announcement came from Walmart, Phil Spencer, former CEO Eric Hirschberg, basically was like, people expected us to do it safe and do Modern Warfare 4, then went on to announce Ghosts, basically the game that would just be fucked from the word go, and it was essentially a glorified Modern Warfare 4. And I think people already had this preconceived notion the game was going to be bad, and in recent years, people have been calling for Ghosts 2 pretty much out of nowhere. I mean, this game was very disliked, at the time considered the worst Call of Duty ever made. People were starting to call for Infinity Ward to be dropped as a dev. Honestly, the game was just pretty mediocre. I mean, a lot of people complained about the movement was slow, the maps were too big, the time to kill was it was a mess. The story wasn't good, but it wasn't bad, which is the best way of saying it was mid. A lot of the game felt like it was taken from different movies. One of the most obvious was the part where the plane splits off. I've seen it before, it's The Dark Knight. The game ended on a cliffhanger that literally made no fucking sense whatsoever, because apparently a bullet that can drop a car engine isn't good enough to kill a guy that was already underwater. Whatever. The multiplayer gave me a similar feeling to MW3. It wasn't anything special. What was great was the DLC, like the maps in the base game had moments where the maps would just start to change. The DLC went all nutty and allowed players to play as Michael Myers and also do various other things like the dogs turn into aliens, which was pretty cool. The other thing you could do is change the voice of your announcer in-game to either Snoop Dogg or that guy who yells on that TV show about celebrities with hidden singing talent. The extinction mode sucked and was Infinity Ward's answer to zombies, and it was just really awful. Like a car crash that you couldn't look away from, it was just full of a lot of random objectives that weren't really great. TBH, I'm going to score this game a 6.7 out of 10 and rank it number 11. It was good in the right moments, but fell flat on pretty much everything else. I also think that people calling for a sequel should probably just shut up, and that if you want a sequel, maybe just do a story DLC or something, but nothing more. I don't know. That's what I think. Call of Duty Advanced Warfare. Probably the most vilified Call of Duty ever. It was the answer to a lot of fans' complaints about the franchise being too much of the same, nothing really new, being slow. So Sledgehammer Games, with their first Call of Duty, decided to just swing for the fences, which basically landed somewhere in the middle of the infield. Honestly, I respect the attempt at doing something new, but this game wasn't polished at all. The story was pretty solid, but I think the only takeaway people had wasn't Kevin Spacey, but the press F to pay respects. Listen, I get it. You wanted that emotional moment where the player interacts with a coffin to have some sort of feelings about your in-game friend who died, but bro, I knew the guy for a minute. That's basically like me going to the funeral and having an emotional reaction to someone I walked by in the grocery store. Troy Baker's in it.
Troy Baker. Troy Baker was in it. He's in every game.
I thought about doing the game, but The zombies was also pretty meh. I mean, it had a lot of big actors like John Malkovich, which apparently was a clone, or I guess Patient Zero, and immediately made me think of the SNL sketch. Malkovich. Advanced Warfare had the most controversial multiplayer ever, whether you loved it or you hated it. There's no denying that the game changed the franchise for the worse. Obviously, the game impacted movement, maps, and gunplay, but this was the first game to introduce supply drops. At first, this seemed like kind of an innocent in-game system to keep players engaged. Instead, this evolved into blatant gambling and just a way to basically make people pay to win. The game had weapon variants which affected the way a gun played. It also had some cosmetic items there as well. But then the system eventually added DLC weapons locked behind a paywall of chance. You could unlock supply drops for free, but if you did that, you were miles behind someone who paid for them, making Advanced Warfare a pay-to-win system. Regardless of how much you enjoyed the cosmetic items in this game, you can't deny the system was very bad for the game and future iterations. It seemed like fans at the beginning enjoyed the new movement system, which quickly ended up becoming like a deep hatred. Me personally, I was intrigued by this game, but it could have been better. Supply drops really weighed down the experience, and I don't think I was the only one to say that they just wanted the next Call of Duty to come out. I'm going to score this game a 6.1 out of 10, but I'm also going to rank this game at number 13 on my list. I want to quickly add that the DLC maps weren't really bad, so yeah. Call of Duty Black Ops 3. One of the most overlooked Call of Duty games ever. It took Advanced Warfare's advanced movement system, but made it better. The story was pretty confusing, but it featured a guy from that show my grandmother loves. I also remember there being a thing about a frozen forest, and that's about it. The Zombies mode I never really played, but I heard good things, but the multiplayer, oh my god, the multiplayer. If you ever wanted an extremely polished multiplayer experience, not balanced, but polished multiplayer experience at launch, play Black Ops 3. The gunplay was great and every gun feeling very unique, and the addition of auto bursts, in my opinion, was a great addition. Another great addition was Specialists at the time. Specialists in Black Ops 3 is Specialists at its best. It's clear that everything was very well thought out with the Specialists. even though the community was pretty split between the pros using Ruin, noobs using Nomad, and content creators using Firebreak. Supply drops were obviously back, and it had a kind of like currency system added to it. I think it was like called crypto or something, not cryptocurrency, but you know what I mean. Most of it was cosmetic, with guns being thrown in here and there, although it was still pretty much locked behind a paywall. You were better off just buying the actual supply drops versus working towards them. If it weren't for this, I imagine people would rank this a lot higher. I recall there being some sort of like revolution led by, I think, White Boy 7th Street, I don't know. He came up a lot of my feed during that time, so I'm just going to assume it's him. A lot of content creators stepped up to the plate. I think it was called Black Market Blackout or something like that. I don't really recall. This whole thing actually exposed a bigger problem where a lot of content creators said something and then pulled back very quickly or said nothing at all, and a lot of people called them out on it, saying that it was unfair, that they weren't even speaking up for the community, as that's kind of their role. I remember there being a lot of hype around this game because it was Treyarch's Call of Duty, and at the time Treyarch was considered like the prize child due to Infinity Ward and Sledgehammer dropping the ball time and time again. So I'm going to score this game an 8.6 out of 10, and I'm going to rank this game at number 3, which is really high because the campaign was good but was weird, but the multiplayer is just so incredible. Call of Duty Infinite Warfare. Yikes. If you enjoyed this game, man, how did you do it? Like, Infinite Warfare was met with immediate backlash from fans the second the trailer dropped, and it became one of the most disliked videos on YouTube just behind Rebecca Black's Friday. Question, why do people hate the YouTube rewinds so goddamn much? Like, I actually find them fun to watch. Whatever. A lot of the criticism came due to the fact that the game had an advanced movement system, something that people really wanted out of the franchise, but at the end of the trailer, MWR was announced to be bundled in with pre-orders, which kind of sucked and I think also added to the backlash. The story gets too much praise. I've seen people say it was like one of the best stories of all time or something. It was very poorly done. If you're going off missions and gameplay, it was pretty fun because they had space combat, which was very well done. But the actual story was terrible. It featured big celebrities like Jon Snow, who was at the height of his Game of Thrones fame, and Conor McGregor, whose appearance is nothing more than punching you in the face and dying 2 minutes later. The game acts like he's a big deal in the dossiers, but he's Infinite Warfare's Marshawn Lynch, who if you blinked, you'd miss. The ending just features everyone dying. Spoilers, I don't know. All of it had pretty much the same effect as like press F to pay respect. The zombies was 80s themed, featuring David Hasselhoff, who was known for the Knight Rider show. Sorry, the guy from the SpongeBob movie. Honestly, having played zombies in this game, it was pretty dumb and skippable unless you're like really into zombies. The multiplayer was awful, supply drops, weapon variants, bad maps, and the specialists were probably at its worst in this game. Infinite Warfare's multiplayer was Infinity Ward saying fuck you and your complaints, play it anyway. Pretty much everything you possibly hated in any of the previous Call of Duties was in this game. As if Infinity Ward stayed off the internet during the entire development cycle and made this. I will say the maps actually felt like the advanced movement system was added very late in the development. Like one map that has a barn in it just doesn't feel like the map was made for the new system. I'm going to score this game a 4.6 out of 10. I ranked it at the very bottom of my list at number 17 because there's nothing good about this game. Fuck everybody involved with this game. Total garbage. Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare Remastered. If you didn't play the original, you're the equivalent of a trust fund baby. You didn't earn any of this, but you got the remaster anyway. The game banks on nostalgia with the campaign being released early so it could suck you in. The game eventually launched feeling like it did way back when, and exactly like you would if you played it on the 360 or PS3 now. But as Infinite Warfare became less profitable post-launch, MWR became littered with micro DLC, supply drops, weapons, skins, you name it, MWR had it. It did have the usual COD points, but also another in-game currency system similar to Black Ops 3 or Infinite Warfare, so you could unlock supply drops or weapons. But this still led to a massive imbalance. I get it, it made the experience something new, and without this, I imagine Call of Duty dies right there and then. So micro DLC was a must, but the fact that they released a variety map pack under a remaster and charged you $5 more than the original when it came out was purely criminal and shows how desperate things were getting at this time. I did enjoy the in-game events that this brought though, so the game had some pros and cons. It's fair to score this game an 8.8 out of 10, and I'm going to rank this game at number 9 on my list because it did keep me around with the disastrous launch of Infinite Warfare, but it was also a semi-new experience, plus the game looked great on the engine that it had. Call of Duty World War II. Sledgehammer was back, baby, and back to please the community again. World War II was built off the feedback of the fans wanting a boots-on-the-ground experience. I recall people being intrigued with the option of World War II, but more so happy that it was a boots-on-the-ground experience. Honestly, most people probably would have preferred a modern combat, but whatever. The story had an amazing start with its Omaha Beach mission, but fell so flat as the game went on. I mean, it was still rather fun, but by the time it tried to address its kind of more important topics like the Holocaust, too much nonsense had happened pretty much leading up to that point that it didn't really have the impact that it should have. Also, Josh Duhamel joined the actors who played Call of Duty characters as a marketing ploy club, and his characters were more of like a secondary antagonist and just kind of a dick the whole time, but who cares? The zombies was pretty meh, while the multiplayer, I don't think gets enough credit, at least that I think it deserves. The class system wasn't very well received by fans, but I personally enjoyed it. I honestly thought it was a good replacement for the specialists. The maps and pacing of the game were actually exactly what people seem to have wanted. Weapon balance was pretty good, and the DLC maps were great, with the in-game events being extremely fun. Part of the problem was fans wanted something a bit more serious, and the last few weren't serious enough at all. Keep that in mind for later. Eventually, the class system was stripped down to its core and reworked and met with semi-positive feedback. I don't know, I still enjoyed it either way. Supply drops were back, but honestly, this was probably supply drops at its best. You had tons of options to unlock new weapons, whether that be supply drops, the quartermaster, or contracts. The in-game currency, not COD points, was great. Just by playing the game, you got currency to build up a weapon or to get to a skin. Even by just logging in, you got some currency. I thought this was a healthy middle for both the player and the developer to be happy. And the game also introduced the headquarters, which was basically ripped straight from Destiny, another Activision property at the time. It was a great way to just screw around before matches with friends, laugh at people buying supply drops, or just straight up 1v1 someone before you jump into a match. This edition was met with a lot of positive feedback and is yet to be back despite fans begging for it to come back. Another cool addition was the game mode War, which was just you and your team fighting back waves and waves of enemy players from capturing or destroying an objective. Personally, I found this to be very fun. Me and a buddy of mine would actually challenge each other every single match we played to see who would get the most kills. And honestly, it was a great idea that I wish would come back. I mean, it was a great way to level up weapons. And did I mention you could fight on Omaha Beach? I'll take a good guess and say this isn't back because of popularity. I don't think it was as popular as it should have been, but I'm going to score this game an 8.7 out of 10, and I'm going to controversially rank this game at number 4. Whoa, crazy. The game that was built off community feedback. The story, regardless of how ridiculous it was actually pretty fun at times, but even though it took away from important moments, it was fun. The zombies was meh, I didn't really play it that much, but the multiplayer was great, and I think it wasn't as appreciated as it should have been. I think people look down on this game very negatively for really no reason whatsoever. Call of Duty Black Ops 4. Black Ops 4 was Battlefield 2042 before 2042 was Clownfield 2042. The game is trash, and any criticism Battlefield 2042 gets should be used to talk about Black Ops 4. The game seems to always have had positive feedback from the community, even now with people saying it's one of the best. It's not. The game was multiplayer only, that lacked content, and had the hated supply drop system. This is the only Call of Duty in which I didn't pre-order and held out because it didn't really look that appealing to me. Nothing I saw really wowed me, and it didn't help that things I was reading about a rough development with the early game looking very similar to Overwatch, but the game did horribly with testers. Everything had to be retooled, yet it still shows Black Ops 4 doesn't really look like a Call of Duty game, more like a shell of its former self. I'm all for new mechanics so long as they don't really ruin the core game. Specialists were back, but they were really, really bad. Maps were pretty mid, with 5 of the 15 being remasters and 29 weapons, which isn't really that bad, but it just didn't seem like it was all that much. The game was littered with microtransactions and just felt like a massive stain on the progression that we saw in World War II, with backlash coming from the fact that you couldn't buy map packs outside of the Season Pass. Zombies was ass, and the campaign was taken out in favor of Blackout. Actually, you could do a campaign-esque thing, but that felt more half-assed that you had to wonder why it was even done in the first place, probably just to accommodate the people that would be pissed. Another thing is apparently the campaign was rumored to not exist due to time constraints, which yet another report has varied that. So Blackout was a battle royale that gets way too much credit. The map was just a mashup of fan favorite maps such as Nuketown, Hijacked, Firing Range, etc. Fans seem to have enjoyed it, at least more so now you hear people talking about it, but I think it fell kind of flat with expectations as this was a passion for the developers. That's why the campaign was taken out. It was pathetic, and if it were actually that good, then Warzone wouldn't exist. I think what also hurt this was the fact that you had to buy Black Ops 4 in order to play Blackout, which no one really wanted to do, and realistically you could just play Fortnite amongst a bunch of other games for free, which were better. It did go free to play at some point later on down the line, but it was kind of too little too late, And I want to mention one more thing about the multiplayer. The game was developed with competitive play in mind, which is probably why most people really like this, and it basically kicked casuals to the curb. I'm going to rate this game a 5.3 out of 10, because there was some, I guess, redeemable aspects, but you could probably talk me down. And I'm going to rank it at number 14. This game is just a blatant cash grab using that Black Ops brand, and it was a joke. Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2019.
Your savior is here!
That's what most people seem to refer to Modern Warfare 2019 as. I don't know. Modern Warfare 2019 was Infinity Ward's last chance to make amends after 3 subpar games, bring some grit and realism back to the franchise, which was met with immediate praise from fans and critics alike. The devs tried to take inspiration from early Call of Duties. Did it work? Well, I would say so, because the game was a massive hit for the franchise, bringing back old fans, getting new fans and Battlefield players, and even kept its core players intact. New additions of the Battle Pass and Gunsmith were very well received. The story was an interactive movie, in my opinion, even though you could just do extremely dumb shit. The missions, the characters, the level, and sound design was just so perfect, delivering amazing tactical stealth missions, or even hard-hitting moments, or moral dilemmas. Rebooting the story while keeping fan-favorite characters was a genius move. Spec Ops was abandoned and might as well not even have been in the game. It was meant to continue the story. Well, it really didn't, and it kind of sucked. The multiplayer, love it or hate it, it succeeded where it needed to. The main flaws I have are with its doors that create more camping and its poor map design. Also, the game engine made it tougher to see people from further away, which became a concern shared amongst the entire community. Some concerns even stating that it was a little too real for the multiplayer, which is kind of what the community wanted, but I guess a bit of trial and error, I guess. I mean, whatever. Either way, the fact of the matter is that it didn't win, or even let alone get nominated for Game of the Year, which was ludicrous. The word, not the rapper. Also, its change from specialists to operators was a very smart move, since they didn't affect the way the game was played, and it was actually a great addition as a storytelling tool. I'm going to rate this game as a 9.4 out of 10, and I'm going to put it at number 6 on my list. Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War. Excuses are like assholes because everyone's got one. Anytime you try to criticize this game, you're immediately met with, well, they didn't have enough time. Well, COVID hurt the production. I don't care. Activision got greedy, and this game was rushed. There's no excuse for how this game released, and it was kind of one of the bigger middle fingers. The story is hilariously bad from the early moments when you can customize your character's name, which could be
Hingle McCringleberry.
Fudge.
but instead the whole time you're just called
Bell.
The game uses fan-favorite characters to disguise a very poor story. The writing is very poorly done. Moments where Bell just talks to like Woods and Mason, or interactions between Park and Lazar, highlighting the exact problem.
But effective.
Can't keep your eyes off me, huh, Park?
Yeah, you're the expert in quiet.
I'm a goddamn onion, Mason.
I'm a goddamn onion, Mason. What the fuck is... Who the fuck says that? There's no badassery in that.
The Zombies is one of the worst in the franchise and shows how far the quality has declined. The Aether story is really dumb and really forced, and Zombies just feels too easy now. More on that later. The multiplayer is garbage with poor weapon balancing, a poorly tuned movement system, and poor maps. A lot of people like to point out the graphics, don't get me wrong, it's shit, but I'm not going to nitpick something even though I feel like it's unfinished. Also, skill-based matchmaking is at its worst in this game. I don't really care what anyone else says, but I found this game unbearable to play. This game is a 5 out of 10, and it ranks at number 16. Enough said. Call of Duty Vanguard. If it weren't for the developers being morons, then this game would have been one of the best Call of Duty experiences altogether. But they went on vacation, the game's quality declined rapidly, and the player base lost their mind. I already made a video on this, so I'm just going to blitz through this real quick. The campaign is just a bunch of flashbacks with okay characters, and is just set up for the Zombies and Warzone stories. Boring. Zombies is the most lazy piece of shit I have ever seen, and I'm surprised that it was even allowed to pass testing. The multiplayer could have been good, but again, Sledgehammer blew it. The game launched better than I thought it was going to after playing the beta, and once December hit, the lack of updates really ruined this game like Joe Burrow ruins defenses. At the time of this recording, the game is still a fucking disaster, but it's getting better because the developers are back in studio and actually have been patching stuff for a few weeks. So I'm still going to rate this game fairly at a 5.6 out of 10 for just kind of being middle of the road and breaking my heart, and I'm going to rank this game at number 14 on my list. Call of Duty Warzone. Warzone is the savior of this franchise, and anyone that thinks differently needs to get their head out of their ass. Modern Warfare 2019 wouldn't have lasted, nor the other two games for that matter, if it weren't for Warzone. It shipped in March of 2019, right at the time of people being in lockdown due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Did Activision have something to do with the COVID-19 pandemic so that people would actually play Warzone? Maybe. Or maybe not. Likely not, for that matter. The game was a massive hit, and the map saw various changes over time. It took over the Battle Royale scene and made Call of Duty a respectable name again, I guess. Fast forward to Cold War, the launch which saw Verdansk get replaced with Verdansk 84, which was viewed as a safe and lazy kind of option. But hey, I just enjoyed it either way. If it's not broke, don't fix it, is kind of my opinion. We also saw the addition of Rebirth Island, which is slowly becoming a fan favorite because of all the updates they've done. This is also around the time we started seeing a lot of cheaters come into the game and become kind of this leech within the game. There was no anti-cheat to combat these people. I mean, there was Cronuses, there was wall hacks, it was a nightmare. And it didn't seem like Activision was reacting very well. Regardless of all that, the game was still pretty fun up until the point we got Caldera, which was met with a lot of criticism due to how open the map was, with most of the POIs being on the outskirts in comparison to its counterpart having POIs semi on the outskirts, but mostly on the inside of the map. The jury is still out on Caldera because they still can fix it. I mean, you've seen it in Fortnite, you've seen it in Warzone already. They have a chance to fix it, but this is also because of Warzone 2, is I guess already being talked about. So I imagine it's not going very well when people are already talking about something that's going to be out in 2023. For saving the franchise from near death and taking things that other BRs were failing at and being so goddamn addictive, this game is a 9.7 out of 10 regardless of any of the issues that exist. I'm going to put this, ready? Number 2 on my list. It is incredible. Why did I do that? Why did I go over every single game and rate them? The Call of Duty franchise has had a lot of ups and downs. I think we're currently in a down at this very second, but it could go up with Modern Warfare 2022. Currently, what drives me nuts is watching this community state a problem, and then when it's kind of corrected or even fully corrected, they scream bloody murder about how it's not what they wanted. Plus, I despise when people say a game is bad, but then eventually they say it's actually good. Opinions can change, sure, but I feel like a lot of these opinions change from a comparison of the current game. Call of Duty is a cycle. See here, the cycle is every year, and it kind of needs to stop. This doesn't wipe the hands clean of the developers either. They need to do a better job of listening to this community as a whole. I mean, they seem to fix one problem with 100 other problems being behind it, and expect praise for the one thing they do patch. We need to find a way between the old players and the new players, and the developers need to work with us on that entire thing by patching certain things in a timely manner. So that it needs to be a nice middle ground. How that's done, I don't know. That's not really my place to decide, but I think that would just come with talking and communicating properly with the developers, and the developers doing the same thing with us. A lot of this comes from a podcast I did with a friend of the channel, Russell. The link is below, where we talked about the state of Call of Duty, but I kind of wanted to organize my thoughts because I feel like I was just kind of saying something without saying anything. Another reason was because of a TikTok I saw that I hope I can find for this video, saying that people who don't enjoy the newer CODs are just getting older. No, well, yes, I'm getting older, but scary older. But that's not the reason why Call of Duty isn't enjoyable to me. There's a theme with all the Call of Duties that I talked about, and why I seem to be more distasteful towards some of them, and a lot of them was due to the microtransaction systems that were in place. It seemed to hurt the player more so than anything else. It seems that we've had it rammed down our throats, and I feel like it's affected the overall game. We're not getting a good game year to year, we're just getting micro DLC jammed down our throat. It's not because people are getting older, it's because the games are just truly developing into this micro DLC bullshit that we're just seeing year after year. And yet no one's complaining about that. People are complaining about just the maps, the doors, exo movement, when there are bigger problems here. I mean, some of those features people wanted in the game. I don't really understand what the big deal is. So what is the state of Call of Duty in 2022? I said it earlier, it was fucked, but that's called a hook. That's something that you probably learned in grade school. Granted, had you asked me that a few weeks ago, I probably would have said that. Hell, I actually did say that. The acquisition of Activision by Microsoft for $69 billion sheds a bit of hope on the franchise, with Microsoft overseeing everything and not human garbage Bobby Kotick. The franchise might see a turnaround from its money-grubbing ways. Hell, it's being rumored that this is going to happen. With it being rumored Call of Duty is soon to be skipping the yearly releases, and if this is true, this is a big win for the fans. If COD can turn it around from being a micro DLC heavy nightmare, then I see the future being very bright. If it doesn't, well, we're all fucked. Another thing is, when issues arise, we should maybe offer those solutions. Obviously, I've talked about microtransactions, so no sense in beating a dead horse, although it is a massive problem. I do want to talk about some other things that I think are key issues that could help. And I would like you to discuss with me in the comment section, and maybe we can bring it to the attention of development. I don't know. They probably won't listen. I doubt anyone's going to watch this. And we're going to do this all in a segment I like to call How to Fix Call of Duty Forever. Why am I still doing this? There's no one even in here. 1. Remove Gunsmith. Honestly, removing it might not be the best answer, so maybe making it more of a cosmetic-only thing, because Gunsmith creates a massive imbalance in game with various ways to play, which some people might find that to be a good thing, but that means there's too many variables at play, and it makes gameplay an unbalanced mess. Going purely cosmetic would allow players to just still have that full control of how their gun looks, and which I guess is kind of the best part about it. Plus, I imagine this is a nightmare for the developers in terms of balancing, so this kind of helps them out as well. 2. Traditional zombies needs to come back. This new zombies sucks asshole. The zombies has become part of the story versus the story being a part of zombies, which has weighed down the overall gameplay. Even if you continue down the stupid path you're on, going back to the traditional wave-based zombies, and I mean real wave-based zombies, is the best move. Zombies is way too easy now. The fact that people can have perks and attachments makes it just so boring after a while. I would find myself just begging my team to end the boredom and just clicking the exfil button over and over again. Old Zombies was more of a challenge, and you had to actually talk to your team and plan out who was getting what door, window, and unlocking a pack-a-punch. Now it's just spoon-fed to you. 3. Make Warzone the big thing. Integrating all features into Warzone is your best move, such as your multiplayer and your zombies. It clearly has a bigger draw, and the yearly releases don't work. Obviously, Microsoft knows the latter part of that, but Warzone is truly the most important part of this brand. Make campaigns DLC. Every Call of Duty has 5 fan-voted maps remastered and put into the game, with 2 weapons per class or per tier or whatever in each game carried over from previous games. 4, as mentioned, campaigns should be purchasable DLC. Make the stories with the characters and the ending kind of more original, but with maybe the ending being a tie-in to Warzone, not the entire game as Vanguard is, i.e. Modern Warfare 2019's campaign. 5, Warzone map rotation. Obviously, you don't want to take anything out unless it's for the first maybe couple weeks. 6, keep the modern setting. I think this goes without saying. It seems like more people react better when it's at this setting, unless you want to do a yearly rotation of maybe World War II, future, whatever, however you want to design the whole thing, but I think modern's your best bet. 7, unless you're willing to change the color palette of the current engine for Modern Warfare, I would use the Modern Warfare Remastered engine. It's a great engine where everything looks really well done and seems to avoid the uber realism that makes everything hard to see, and also the engine runs so well. I mean, it was a great engine at the very launch of Modern Warfare Remastered. And that's all I can think of, right now at least. Wow, what a video, huh? Crazy. Did you make it to the end of this entire video? Because if you did, I kind of feel bad. I mean, this was a wicked long video that you probably spent a lot of time watching, but if you did, leave a comment and say, I enjoyed it or something. What do you think of the state of Call of Duty? Here's a puppy, by the way, for you to at least stare at for the rest of this video. Do you think it gets better or worse? And if you enjoyed this video, why not leave a like? And maybe a follow, because that does help me out, I guess. Again, thank you for spending your time and watching this video. I appreciate it. Well, bye.